This podcast is part of E2C Network, where we share the whole Auburn experience.
War Eagle Auburn fans, welcome to No Huddle, your source for Auburn football news and discussion, part of the E2C Network. I'm AJ Richardson, and I'm also here with Jared Davis. We're coming to you a little bit later this week. We had some scheduling conflicts. Thanks for bearing with us. But we will be breaking down a little bit of the Missouri game, where Auburn's at, and kind of looking into the next game at Kentucky, where, as we'll discuss, Kentucky, you think Auburn fans are down? Kentucky fans are real down right now. So there's an opportunity there for Auburn. Before you get into everything, Jared, how you doing?
I'm good, man. Better we're doing this a few days after the game because I've had time to calm down, realize that the world's not coming to an end, and so I'm feeling actually pretty good right now, where I was not feeling good on Saturday.
Yeah, literally, I was in a mopey, bitter mood. Just because it was one of those, it was just so reminiscent of the Oklahoma game, and then I let myself, and I should not let myself get to this point, but my mind's like, we're up by 11 and going to the fourth quarter. We can do this. Just close it out, right? And here we are, same type of story, just rewrote itself again, but for the Missouri game, and Auburn blows an 11-point lead to Missouri, and once again loses, and that just again stings, and I think that's honestly a lot of this year is that exact same story. I think it's the 3 of the 5 Power 4 games Auburn has had leads, and at some point, and then we just can't close it out, and that's what, you can see the potential. And then you're just you're not playing the full 60 minutes. And I feel like that's, I don't know. Is there any way, Jared, is that a motivation thing? Is that I would hope not, that it's not a stamina thing of, they need to run more sprints or whatnot. Any thoughts on how Auburn could close out some of these games?
I don't know. I mean, I guess it could be a multitude of a lot of things. I honestly think, and I've thought this for most of the year, I think Hugh is calling every play like his job's on the line, and I could see that trickling down to the team, everybody's too tight.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they're too tight. They're afraid every play means too much to them.
Yeah.
And while it needs to matter, and you need to do your job, and you need to be attention to detail and all that, that needs to come natural. It does not need to be manifested in you're too tight.
Yeah.
And I just think that's what it is. I think we're too tight. I think Hugh tried to loosen it up against Cal a little too early. Before everybody was on the same page, we threw a bunch of interceptions, and ever since then, it has been trying to call the perfect play every time.
Yep.
And you just need to go. I would be absolutely okay if we open the. Listen, I know we want to run. Jarquez is our guy, right? But you saw everybody knows that now, and he didn't do as well this past week. He got the most carries, but didn't he only averaged 3.5 yards. So I would be okay if we go out there, open this offense back up, go more no huddle, get back to what got Hugh his name.
Yeah.
Let's see. At this point, what do you have to lose? Go out there and have fun. Let's see what happens. And don't play to not lose. Go take that thing. And it's just weird, man. It is literally everything that can go wrong. When we dropped that pass, I think it was Lewis, we dropped that pass to go up. As soon as he dropped it, I immediately had the thought, we're going to lose this ball game.
Yeah, which is wild because at that point, I think we were up by at least one score, if not 2 scores on Missouri.
I think
so
it
you're
was 17-6, and I'm we're going to lose this ball game. It wasn't even second down in that drive. But I was like,
Yeah.
I was like, that right there is just how our season goes. Because the next play, it's a sack, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the next one, I don't know, we didn't get many yards, and then we missed the field goal. And you're
Yep.
like, that is the culmination. That drive is the culmination of our season.
Yeah. And part of me, like, I want to fix the offense, right? Because I think I'm putting most, if not all, of the blame on our offense this year, and I think most people will too. And it's around the offense not sustaining drives. Like I can't remember, somebody on Twitter, um, pretty much put together in the SEC play certain, essentially our drives and how long our drives have been. And if you kind of look at them, most of our drives have been pretty short drives. If you're talking about like scoring, and that's usually off a turnover or whatnot, we're just capitalizing. There are a few, and I think there's about 6, and this is throughout all of Auburn's 4 SEC games. There's only 6 actual like scoring drives that are longer than, I think it's about like 58 yards. So there's just not a lot of sustained getting a first down, getting another first down, getting another first down. It's like Auburn's hoping for either the big play to score on a big play, which, hey, credit to Auburn, they did it again this game with Cam Coleman, long touchdown pass, awesome. We did it against Georgia with Jarquez with the long run. I mean, you can do it, you can do that occasionally, but you can't bank on that because SEC defenses are good enough to stop you most of the time and not allow those big explosive plays. So I think that's my biggest like point that I want this offense to get better at is sustaining drives. And I think if you can somehow figure that out this season, which I don't know at this point if you can figure that necessarily out. I mean, you're already 7 games in and you still can't figure that piece out. But here we are. I mean, I like your approach of, hey, give them a little bit more looseness. Don't feel like every play is a do or die kind of moment. Still execute at a high level, but give them a little bit more, I don't know, fun. I don't know if fun's the right word, but like not make it like you have to do this exactly right or else it's not going to work kind of mentality, because that can weigh on teams, especially if you're like Auburn and 2-5.
Well, interestingly enough about the drives, we're not doing well with that, and we are not. I'm pretty sure I saw a stat the other day that said Auburn leads the country in 40-plus yard plays. So
Interesting.
we have the explosive play, like you said. We did it to Cam. I think we have 1 or 2 a game.
Yeah.
But you're right. We're not able to sustain, and we're at like 82% red zone percentage. I mean, that's not good. So, if that doesn't happen in the Oklahoma game, we win that one with the guy to the goal line couldn't score. So we're just not doing. It's a culmination. We're messing up in multiple areas at crucial times. But I mean, you mentioned that it's the offense, and it is the offense, but like even the defense will play well 95% of the game, but like when you need them, they can't stop them. When you need them to get off the field on 3rd down or 4th down.
Yeah.
When Oklahoma is really bad and not having a good game at all, they give up a deep. Like the only thing that's going to turn this around is an explosive play, and we give it up.
Yep.
And it's like I know you can't put it all on them, right? But I mean, you gave up 21 points, or what they give up, 17 something points in the 4th quarter. Like, you got to be able to stop that.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's definitely, I mean, that if you look at, so here's a crazy stat for you. In the 4th quarter of SEC games up to this point, Auburn has been outscored 52-10. And no wonder we're losing games. We've only put up 10 points in all of our 4th quarters in the SEC play, and our opponents have scored 52. And 42-point deficit cumulatively in SEC play.
That's not gonna be good.
No.
I think it was SEC Barstool Twitter handle put out. They did a ranking of the 16 positions in the SEC, and they said Georgia number 1, Tennessee defense number 2. It said 3 through 12, you figure it out. Number 13 was Auburn's first 3 quarters offense.
Mm-hmm.
14 was Oklahoma, 15 was Kentucky, 16 was Auburn's fourth quarter offense. Like, that's how they had the SEC.
That felt right.
That's probably right. I think
right.
the first 3 quarters offense is probably too low. It's probably like up around number 8 or 9. But the last was Auburn's fourth quarter offense. That was ranked number 16.
That's so funny. It's funny because it hurts, but yes. all the same. And I have to again every week almost remind myself, still rebuilding, but like if this team does not feel like a 2-5 team, it feels like probably closer to like a 4-3 type of team, because we've been in a lot of these games at this point, and that's kind of the weird part of this and why I feel like it just keeps stinging over and over. And so they obviously have a lot to figure out. I do want to.
I'm pretty sure the end. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I just wanted to transition over to like the defensive side. I mean, Brady Cook, the Missouri quarterback. I mean, when he went out, you could tell Missouri didn't really have a good offensive, kind of threat that they could, rely on. Apparently, I mean, he went to the hospital. Maybe it sounded like maybe for like his get an X-ray or something. Maybe they just didn't have that kind of stuff at the stadium. And he was like, I want to come back. So he ended up coming back in the third quarter. And I mean, that's when a lot of the momentum. Auburn still scored 14 points in the third quarter, but you could tell Missouri at that point was really starting to take back some of the momentum. And obviously, the fourth quarter was Auburn's bugaboo this season. And that's just the way I feel like things have been going. If Brady Cook doesn't come back and he isn't absolutely hopped up on drugs or whatever they put him on, because my goodness, did y'all see him walking off the field right like when he got originally injured? He was not in good shape. And he comes back and he looks like he's a brand new human being. And I'm like, all right, did you just like put like all the like drugs into this dude?
Modern medicine.
Can't do that. I mean, didn't you say right before this that he's not projected to play next week or something?
I did see a headline that he's not expected to play per the headline this week. So, yeah, I mean, that shows you how bad off he was.
Yeah, if he's not playing against Alabama next week, you got to think his ankle or whatever's pretty messed up. But he definitely pushed through and got Missouri a win. Very unfortunate for Auburn, because I think without him coming back, I don't know if you lead a fourth quarter charge like how he led it. A couple other kind of really big things here. It was kind of cool. I feel like our defense got some really good pressure on the quarterback, which we had not seen a lot of. We had Eugene Asante get a couple really big sacks. We also had Jalen McLeod get a couple sacks as well. So that was kind of a bright spot in our defense. And then we also had a couple combined sacks by Malik Blockton and Isaiah Rakes. Or not Isaiah Rakes, sorry, Dorian Mausi. So props to them. I mean, anytime you get a sack, I feel like it's just like the tip of the iceberg of like, hey, you've been putting in the hard work, and you get the right call, and you make a move on the guy, and you get to the quarterback and get a sack. So big props to them. Little thing about our special teams here, we can hit on this. Oscar Chapman, he is on some finalist lists or semifinalist lists for being one of the best punters in the nation, and rightly so. You hate to see it if you're an Auburn fan that he's punting so much. Like today or on Saturday, he punted for seven times, but he averaged almost 41 yards per punt, which is honestly in college football really solid. And 4 of those were within the 20-yard line. There was even one that was touchdown at like the 1-yard line. He had another right at like the 5-yard line, And so he did his job. He did exactly what he needed to do. And that's yeah. And there was even one, where we ended up the punt returner muffed the punt. And you got to think, that's because Oscar Chapman put just enough air under it. The punt returner just knew the guy was right there. The gunner was coming for him, and thankfully it bounced the right way for Auburn to grab it, and we ended up scoring the touchdown off of that. So Oscar Chapman's a big part of that, and doing his job as a punter. Keontae Scott had a really good return up to the Missouri 37. I feel like I'm slowly, I don't know about you, but slowly building my confidence back up in Keontae after he had lost it, where he had fumbled it a couple of times early in the season. And then a couple other things with the kicker, Towns Magoo. As much as I think we all love the hometown kid, it's been it's pretty rough for him. He's right around like 500, so he's missing like half of his field goals. Now, some of them are really long, but there have been some really short ones that you're like, come on, you got to make those, like even one this game. And I think that was the catalyst. There was some news out from Hugh Freeze that Alex McPherson is finally healthy enough and will be attempting any field goals shorter than 35 yards, which I think is a good thing for Auburn. So props to Alex McPherson for sticking with it and getting healthy, and hope he makes his comeback this season and is ready to go. Any other thoughts or any kind of things you want to talk about from this Missouri game before we switch over to talking about Auburn's next game against Kentucky?
Just real quick on the kicking situation. I heard somebody, it might have even been Hugh himself, that I heard say, if we would have had another chance for, a 35 or in field goal, we would have put McPherson in.
Oh, really? In that last game?
In that last game.
Oh,
which,
wow.
If that's true, it makes me wonder why we didn't even go ahead and do it to begin with. Maybe they thought, let's try to get through one more game. Let's see if we can get what we need out of Towns. But, I think if it would have come down to a game winning inside the whatever range they think he can do, I think they would have put McPherson out there, even in that game. So
wow,
that's positive because, to be honest with you, from a momentum standpoint, it probably cost us that game, and it probably cost us the Oklahoma game. So,
and I really do genuinely hate that because, like,
I hate saying it too. I'm just trying to be real,
No, it is real because if you make those field goals, McPherson doesn't miss a couple back-to-back field goals, given a second chance in the earlier game. Like, oh man, like there are times where I was like, or Towns didn't. I think I said McPherson, but I meant Towns doesn't miss those. That's. I think that does change the game.
Well, I heard another podcast say this, and correct me if I'm wrong, and then we'll move on. They're like, well, it didn't matter. They still scored 21. Yeah, but they went for 2 one of those times, and if it's 20, they probably don't go for 2. So at bare minimum, we go to overtime.
Yeah.
So
no, I think it matters.
It was a huge field goal.
I think it really matters.
Yeah.
And if anything, it's you make the field goal. I forget what the score differential, but it would have been at least 2 scores.
It would have been 20-6. Going into the fourth. Yeah. That's a momentum. Number one, momentum, and number two, they don't go for 2 after the first touchdown, and so their second touchdown just ties it. I think that's probably how they play that out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it does change how Auburn goes about the rest of the game. So again, glad to see that McPherson is getting healthy enough to come back. All right, let's transition to the very next game for Auburn with Kentucky. It'll be an evening kickoff. I was talking to my dad. He's going with some of his college friends. They usually pick one game a year, if not 2, to go to. And this is one of them. So they're going to make a fun game out of this one. Road trip. My little sister, who she just got her graduate degree. She went undergrad at Auburn, but then she got her master's from Kentucky. and she's going there. The funny thing is, I feel like this happens a lot if you get like an online degree. Like my sister was like, I don't think she's ever even stepped on Kentucky's campus, and she's already graduated from there. So it's kind of
That's
funny.
pretty awesome.
But she's I know they're looking forward to it. It will be in Lexington.
What time is it at?
6:45 at night Central Time.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. And I was talking to a Kentucky fan today. It was one of the clients at work that he lives right around Lexington. They have season tickets, and there's an overall like people are just if you're a season ticket holder, you're selling your tickets, like is what he's saying. Like they're more or less saying I will not support Mark Stoops until he's fired. Like that's what they're doing, and it's kind of wild to me, but I mean I guess it makes sense. They're ready for a change, and Kentucky has had a rough go the last little bit. So it's
Which is crazy because they went and beat Ole Miss at Ole Miss.
I know.
And I mean, I thought they had maybe finally turned, and then they honestly, if they had any resemblance of an offense, would have beaten Georgia.
Yeah, the 13-12 in that game.
Yeah.
Wow. So like again, but my point is like I think there's a lot of like down morale at Kentucky, and I'm sure the players are feeling this at Auburn too, like a down morale. But at least we've been leading in games and like had chances to win games. And really all Kentucky has to hang their hat on is a close game against Georgia, and really you're talking about beating Ole Miss, which it's a pretty solid game. And it was at Ole Miss, I think.
It was at Ole Miss. I think the thing with Auburn is that like you see this like the more the freshmen play, the better play you're seeing, and
Yeah.
I think you say, all right, at some point it might click. I don't think with Kentucky has a better defense than ours. I haven't checked stats, but that's my gut. But I don't think offensively they have a lot of hope. So I think it's probably like, that feeling, right? Like Auburn. I mean, we lead the nation in 40+ yard. Like it's there. It can happen. Can we do it more consistent? And I don't even know if it's there with Kentucky.
Yeah.
So I can see why you're like, yeah, we're not. I think the game's going to be pretty ugly. Honestly, I think their defense is going to make us look pretty bad offensively. I don't know if they're going to be able to do enough offensively. I don't know where I lean on this. I'll tell you in a few minutes. But I think it's going to be a pretty ugly game.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm looking at how just like the betting odds for this, like the over under is 42.5 points, which roughly puts both teams scoring about 21 points each. I mean that seems about right.
That's probably too high. That's probably too high.
You think so?
I mean, we scored 17 at Missouri, and that was with a punt return or a fumbled punt. So I think Kentucky has a better defense. I think I'm leaning we win this game, but if we do, it's like 17-13 or something, in my opinion.
Yeah, it like you said, it's going to be like a down and dirty type of
it's
game.
Not
like
going to be pretty. I don't think it's going to be 3-2 like Tuberville era, but it might be like 5-3.
It might be something crazy like that. Let's go into our players to watch for this game. Let's start out with offense, and I can start it out. To me, it's figure out how to get Jarquez. Like he's getting roughly about 20 carries a game, right? But get him carries and get that. He was only averaging, I think, 3 yards a rush last week because they kept, Missouri was just like zoning in on him. Like you got to find ways to get him the ball because we all know Jarquez is like the most talented player on this whole offense. I mean, just think about that hurdle. I mean, he's done it before. He did it again against Missouri. Just get him the ball and whatever ways you can. If it's creative, make it happen. Who are you going to be watching on offense, Jared?
Well, I don't know if I admitted on here. I told you before we got on. I only saw half our game last week. I was coaching my son's soccer. So correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I don't think KLS had enough touches, and
Oh
so
no, I think he had like 2 catches or something.
yeah, that can't happen. Like I
Yeah.
don't like. the, for example, this is too many. But the Alabama game, Ryan Williams had over 20 passes thrown to him.
Oh
That's
my
too
gosh.
many. I know. And he only caught like 8 of them. That's too many. But like 10 minimum. You got to throw the ball to KLS 10 times minimum.
Yeah.
Um, because good things happen when he touches the ball. You need to get Jarquez the ball, like you said. But if you're going passing game, you gotta at least throw his way 10 times. Somehow,
Mm-hmm.
some way, good things happen. So
Yeah,
that's what I'm watching. Can we scheme that to happen? And even if you can't scheme it, just throw it his way and let's see what happens.
for sure. On defense, this is one you could go with so many different players. There's been so many this year. Honestly, a lot of younger guys stepping up on the defense. So you could easily go any one of them. Um, to me, this is another one of those like key games. I mean, we're 2-5, and whoever is like our middle linebacker or like one of the main linebackers, if it's Eugene Asante or whoever that is, that's kind of like keeping this defense like mentally sharp. Like you have to do your job. Um, like you said against Missouri, like if you don't allow a deep pass, this game Auburn's winning it against Missouri last week. So whoever's kind of the leader on the field, got to make sure that the guys know the situation and lined up correctly. So I'll guess I'll say like Eugene Asante. Who are you going to be watching, Jared?
I mean, so I'm like, okay, where do we go with this? I think the front seven has done a really solid job stopping the run. I think that's if they do that, it's going to be very difficult for Kentucky to move the ball. So what I'm going to be watching is not a particular player, but I'm going to watch can our DBs keep the one big play? Because if it's 17
Mm,
13-ish, can they keep the one big play that we've been giving up? Can they get all the way through the game and avoid that play? Because I think we're going to probably be able to control and stop the run well enough, keep it low scoring on their end. It, if it's fourth quarter and we're up 17-10, can the DBs prevent somebody getting in behind them?
yeah, yeah,
And we haven't seen that yet. Let's be honest. We haven't seen a full 4 quarters of that.
yeah. Very true. Like it feels like every game we've had moments that teams like crept back in. Like it was the Oklahoma game had that same thing. Deep pass kept them in the game when that was literally the only thing. That was the only way that Missouri could creep back into this. So
Well, even the
I agree.
Arkansas game, it
Yeah.
was a third or fourth and long, and we're playing essentially a preventative type defense, and they still get behind our guy, and it's like you can't do that. And listen, easy for me to say, but we're going off of relative here. These people are 4 and 5 star college athletes. You can't let them get
Mm-hmm.
behind you. Like you
Yeah.
have to. We got to lock that down.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Special teams. I mean, I think it's super obvious. Alex McPherson, Towns McGoo, kickers. Like it is. Like I mean, like we said. I mean, that's essentially lost us a couple games. And if it's a down and dirty game, I mean, Alex McPherson or Towns McGoo making field goals is going to be super key.
Let me ask you a question real quick. If it's over 35 yards and McPherson can't go, do you even kick it? I mean, at what point do you have to
Oh
say,
man.
this is what we have?
I
Like,
mean,
you've shown me enough.
a lot of. I mean, but also a lot of colleges, anything past like 40 yards, they're already kind of like questioning. You might have like a 50-50 shot. Now, Auburn's been definitely the luxury of having great kickers for literally the last like 15, 20 years, whatever it's been. And we haven't had to, ponder, oh, do we kick it? Usually anything under 50, we're like automatically just kick the ball because we have an 80% chance or whatever it is to make a field goal. But you're right. I mean, like to me, if it's past like anywhere past 40, like let's just 40-yard field goal. just go for it. Like, at worst, you're going to turn the ball over, and that's okay. We still turn out with 0 points, but then you still give yourself the opportunity to maybe score a touchdown if you get the first down.
Well, and
So,
I'm even thinking if their offense is struggling pretty bad, maybe you send out the punter. Maybe you try to put them at the 5-yard line and hold them, and now
yeah,
you're resetting. Now you're
yeah,
resetting it with a first down after they punt back to you. So
yeah,
just a
yeah,
lot to think about there.
yeah. Who are you going to be watching on special teams? Is it the same, like kickers?
Oh yeah, I mean I think the obvious is who do we trot out to kick? I mean
Yeah,
that's what you got to be watching. So yeah, that's what I'm going to be keeping an eye on.
yeah. Let's go into our score predictions, and I realize we did not do any score updates, so we'll quickly do those from our updated scores from the last game. I had predicted Auburn to win by 3, which up until literally the last field goal or last touchdown, like I was going to hit that exactly. So
Were you
thank you,
feeling
Auburn
good?
defense. Oh, I was
Were
feeling
you?
actually pretty
Did,
decent about that,
yeah.
um, and I think you had us winning by 10 points. So our score differential, I think, is around 17. I've still got a 17-point lead in this score prediction game that we're
Ooh.
doing. It's not too bad. I think
Yeah,
my
are
very
we in the
yeah.
fourth quarter yet? I mean, I'm just gonna wait till we get to the fourth and then come back and beat you.
Hey, be like Auburn, do it.
That's right.
And our top offensive threat, the other kind of game where we're doing throughout the season between us, Missouri obviously won, and but Cam Coleman, we had a big play from him, scored a touchdown. He only had one touch, but he made that touch very worth it. I mean, also let's be honest. How can we get Cam Coleman the ball more? Like, we need to get him the ball more. Like, not just one touch for one touchdown. Like, get him 5 touches a game. Like, I feel like that's not too much to ask for with how big of a dude he is. And now he's back to 100% health. The shoulder's not injured. Let's go. I say go all in on Cam Coleman and see what happens. And for for that game, neither of us, I had Jarquez, you had KLS, and both of them had like somewhat decent days, but uh, nothing great. All right. So score predictions for this game. Let's talk about the Kentucky game. I was looking at the ESPN kind of score predictor, and it's right now at 48.5%. It's gone up a little bit since the preseason. And the spread is favored towards Kentucky by 2.5 points. So again, roughly just pretty much home field advantage, which feels just about right from what I can kind of picture. Preseason, I said Auburn was going to win by 7. You said Auburn was going to win by 10 preseason. I'm not feeling nearly as good about that. I'm going to say Auburn wins by 3. Like, I genuinely think we can win this game. Also, my dad has a pretty good away game record in the last few years. So, like, he went to the Arkansas game last year. I absolutely torched them. So my dad's going to be at the game. I feel decent about that. Yeah, because I'm superstitious. And I'll say Auburn wins by 3. How are you feeling,
I
Jared?
didn't know about your dad's away record. I'm going by 50 now. Give me Auburn by 50. I'm kidding. Um, I'm with you, man. I don't like. So here's where we are 2-5, and we're only a 2.5 point underdog on the road in the SEC. I mean, there's
Yeah.
some bad football being played, but also I think statistically, analytically, we're number 29 in the country. You know, if you're only going analytics, so it's there's glimpses of it. I'm gonna pray we have enough glimpses. I'm going 17-13. I've been talking about it the whole podcast. We'll stick with that score. Auburn wins 17-13.
All right. So 4-point win for Auburn. And we'll just see how it goes. I mean, it's I
Well,
think
your
it is going to
dad's
be like
there,
that.
so we're gonna win. Just how bad is really what it boils down to.
Well, like, my hope, because Arkansas last year was like super down, and I think Auburn was ready to go. Like, they played super well, and that's why we absolutely demolished Arkansas. I don't think I'm not getting the vibes that Kentucky as like a team is down like that, but the fans are. And if you can somehow keep the Kentucky fans out of this, like, I mean, Auburn could have a huge win if they can keep the Kentucky fans out and not give them anything to cheer for. All right, top offensive threats. Again, just as a reminder, this is the top player on the offense that has scored for this game, for this Kentucky game, most touchdowns, and then the tiebreakers, the yards. So, I want to say KLS, but realistically, I'm gonna go, and that may be right. Maybe I'm second guessing myself, but I'm gonna second guess myself. I'm gonna say Cam Coleman. Like, I really want Cam Coleman to come out and play really well, score another touchdown. Again, we got to have ways and find ways to use Cam Coleman. Who are you gonna be as your top offensive threat for this Kentucky game?
I'm throwing a curveball. It's a little later than we do this than normal, so I'm losing my mind here. I think KLS needs to be our most targeted player.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're going young, man. I think we're about to really go young. I think there's going to be a lot of attention on Cam.
Mm-hmm.
I think Perry Thompson's going to come in. He's going to sneak in. He's going to have probably the third best DB covering him. I think he's going to slide in and get a touchdown in this game. And I'm going with him leading the scoring.
He's been kind of quiet in the last few games.
He's been very quiet. It's changing this weekend.
I mean,
Period.
If you're Auburn, like, this is the time to do it because you know you're not going to a bowl game more than likely. So let's get all of these young guys as many reps as possible. I'm all for that. So if it means putting Perry out there a few more, plays and designing some plays specifically for Perry Thompson, like, give me that all day. I think that pretty much does it. Anything else? Any other observations from this last week? I know we had some decent games. I mean, obviously Bama losing to Tennessee. I mean, that was pretty much the headliner, one of the main headliners there. Also, Texas losing to Georgia was a big one. I mean,
I do need to say, that game, they got the pass. Did you watch the pass interference play?
For which game?
Texas, Georgia.
Oh, yeah. I watched that.
Okay, so they got the call right. That was the worst officiating job I've ever seen in my life.
Oh, that was trash.
I mean, the call was correct, so you're kind of torn, not being a Georgia fan. You're like, they got it right, but how they got there was not right.
Well, it was one of those things where it was like obviously all the fans threw all the trash on the field, delayed the game for, like, I don't know, probably 10 minutes cumulatively, and then one of the coaches, like, calls a timeout or something. I forget what happens exactly. And then the refs are like, actually, let's get together and talk about that play that just happened 10 minutes ago. And you're like, really? Like,
hey,
I mean, like, I agree.
Them? They had already called it. Like, have you ever seen, like, I've seen a flag get thrown, they huddle up, and then they say there was no pass interference. Right. I don't think I've ever seen it where they call it and then reverse it.
Well, and particularly like pass interference. Like, yes, that's one of those 100%. Once it's called, like,
because it's a judgment call. It's called. It's not. There's no. Yeah. I mean, it was not. I would have argued it was probably more Georgia. The guy kind of pushed him away to do his curl route, but it was not. It was the right call. That's what gives me a little bit of okayness with it. But yeah, that was that was bad, man.
Yeah. I mean, and another kind of crazy thing, SEC fined Texas for that $250,000, which probably rightly so. I mean, it's not a good thing, and they don't want to set the precedence like that's good. But then you got the then you have the opposite side of things of, like, hey, them throwing crap on the field got them to reverse a call. Like, that's the first time I've ever seen anything like that ever happen. So, like, that's wild to me. But one of the other
wild play.
Yeah, one of the other wild things, I don't know if you heard this, but Texas used all like the different video and stuff to like identify the player or people that were in the stands throwing, the trash on the field or bottles or whatever. And to me, that's wild. Like they spent so much extra time doing that, and apparently that was like from the SEC to get them to do that. Which, I mean, I get it. It's kind of interesting. But those those fans are apparently banned from coming to any future Texas athletics events for the remainder of this school year, which wild. That means they can't come to like, for example, basketball games. They can't come to whatever other sporting event that Texas has. I mean, that's a tough blow if you get that. But hey, we all know college students, they got those fake IDs out there, so they'll find a way in, I'm sure.
They'll find a way. They'll get in somehow. But yeah, you're right. I did hear that they were doing that and they were going to ban them. But just a wild sequence of events.
Super weird. Another crazy one. South Carolina, beating Oklahoma, which
badly.
Yeah, I mean, good for them. I mean, it just makes me feel really bad. Like, how do we not beat this Oklahoma team?
Well, we had it in control. I mean, that was we talked about this. That was the most control. That felt like back to when we were good days. All right, we've controlled this entire game. This is great. No fear. And we gave up that big play, and then we put pick six. But I think Oklahoma. I mean, Brett Venables. I mean, they're getting frustrated over there. He just fired the offensive coordinator, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I mean, you're 4-3. I mean, this is your first year in the SEC. There were gonna be growing pains, but I mean, this is really tough for them, and I'm sure them coming in probably optimistic. We can do this. Tough. Like, SEC's tough. Auburn knows this. Every team knows this. Bama has 2 losses. They know it. They don't have Saban anymore, and it's definitely showing.
Say it one more time. How many losses does Bama have?
Dose. And there's
what was to one of the teams? One of them was what?
I don't know. Who was it? Georgia?
Well, no, not them. It rhymes with candy.
Yeah, one of the little candy store places. You walk in and it hits you. Like, that's what it felt like, right? And you see those up in Nashville, and you get my catch my drift.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Anyway, it's still wild.
All right, we're getting crazy. It's late for us. I'm rambling. But no, I got nothing else, man. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's just if we got to win by 1.5, whatever we got to do.
Yeah.
I
don't care. I don't care. If it means Auburn wins by 1 point, I genuinely don't care. We just need to win.
We went 2-0. I do not care. Give me a W. Let's get back home. I'm kidding. I'm not kidding. Give me 2-0. I'm okay with that.
Man. That would be so tough, but I'll take it. Oh man. All right, Jared. How can people stay in touch with you?
You can find me on Facebook under my name, Jared Davis.
And you can find me on X at AJAY, JAY_. It's always great to be an Auburn Tiger and War Eagle.
War Eagle.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode on the E2C Network. On your way out, I want to remind you to stop by e2cnetwork.com. It's your one-stop shop for all our content across our podcast, YouTube channel, and much more. To stay up to date with us, make sure you're following social media accounts such as Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. While our content here may always be Auburn sports heavy, if it's orange and blue, it's what we do. War Eagle.